Do you know how to define backlog items correctly and which information to use? What are the best practices for backlog item content? In this video, I will give you 5 rules that can help you keep your backlog items in a good shape. My name is Vladimir, I'm an agile coach, and this is Practical Agile. The first thing we need to mention is the definition of a backlog item. For a development team, a backlog item represents a deliverable task, compliant to a team quality criteria. In Scrum, the criteria of quality are typically documented in a definition of done. In Kanban, this can be defined as a part of a team policy for a respective class of service. And by being deliverable, it means that the finished backlog items always must have some physical or digital representation, which means that a finished task cannot be presented just verbally without being documented somewhere or without being delivered as a working piece of software. This is especially required for any research tasks, where many development teams tend to present results just verbally without any written representation. Another important thing to mention is that backlog items are typically organized into larger groups that contain closely related functionality that is often released together as one piece. In Scrum, such groups of related tasks are called epics, while in Kanban or SAFe, which is a scaled agile framework, they are typically called features. Both epics and features represent the same. Today, we will not be speaking about the definition of an epic or a feature, which basically maps to a definition of a business case from the project management perspective, but we will discuss just the attributes of underlying backlog items. So, what information should be present on a typical backlog item? At a very minimum, a backlog item should have at least a title, a description, a reference to a parent feature or epic, and a link to more detailed required specification if needed. Today, I will not be describing how to write a good requirement specification. Today, I will be speaking more high level, and I will just describe the type and format of information that should be present on a refined backlog item that is ready to be implemented. A backlog owner, which is represented by a product owner role in Scrum, should make sure that all backlog items meet following rules. Rule number 1. Titles and descriptions of the backlog items should use common language, so that even external stakeholders and junior team members are able to get a basic understanding of what is to be delivered and why, without the need to get an explanation from senior team members or from a product owner. This greatly simplifies and speeds up team discussion and decision making over a backlog, as there is no need for lengthy explanations of individual backlog items. Rule number 2. Titles of backlog items should clearly, unambiguously, and concisely describe the deliverable and action performed, including identification of the affected component or service. It should be easy for everyone to get a high-level understanding of what is the subject of the delivery, what type of work will be done, and what component or service will be affected just based on the title, without the need to display the details of the backlog item. This enables the team to make effective prioritization decisions just over a list of backlog item titles, which is usually a default view on a backlog used in many agile tools. Having the component or service as a part of the item title also simplifies quick and easy understanding of the item whenever the item is presented without an epic or feature context. For example, in various searches, reports, dashboards, integrations, and so on. Rule number 3. The description of an individual backlog item or an attached requirement specification should contain enough information so that it is possible for the team to evaluate the item, to estimate it, and to determine its relative priority compared to other backlog items. Later in the backlog item lifecycle, once the item gets to the top of the backlog, it must be possible to implement, verify, and validate the item using the information. Provision of this information is a responsibility of a product owner and a business representative that works with the team. If there is a detailed requirement specification document attached, it is a good practice to concisely summarize following high-level information from the requirement specification also to the description of the backlog item, so that the team does not have to read the detailed requirement specification every time they revisit the item. What is the deliverable? What needs to be modified? Acceptance criteria, and summary of other important information like deadlines, dependencies, impediments, non-functional requirements, and so on. Rule number 4. All backlog items must always be estimated. A good practice for the backlog owner is to make sure that there are never backlog items without an estimation in the backlog. Even a newly created backlog items must be immediately estimated. The backlog owner must educate the team that anyone who creates a new backlog item is also responsible for getting it estimated immediately, either by himself, herself, or by someone else. Even a very quick estimate, done within just a few minutes, based just on an educated guess and a quick discussion with the team, is acceptable. This is because the accuracy of the initial estimate is not that important unless the item is supposed to be placed immediately at the top of the backlog. The initial inaccurate estimate may always be updated later with a more precise value during the item refinement process when the item makes its way to the top of the backlog. As estimations are one of the most important inputs for prioritization and planning, by having all backlog items estimated, it is easy for the team to make informed decisions at any time and keep the plan always up to date. The reality is that estimates will always be inaccurate, and for a purpose of planning, even an inaccurate estimate is better than no estimate. Just keep in mind that it is not very effective to spend too much time on estimating a backlog item that is close to the bottom of the backlog, as priorities might change at any time, and the backlog item might be deprioritized and removed from the backlog. For backlog items at the bottom of the backlog, doing a quick educated guess as an initial estimate is usually more than sufficient. Rule number 5. Blocked backlog items in the backlog should be always clearly visibly marked, so that it is possible to immediately identify them when scanning through the backlog. And the reason why the item is blocked should be always documented on the backlog item, so that everyone can see it immediately. Any references to backlog items or external tickets that are blocking the item must be documented as well. Without this information being recorded on the backlog item, the team may forget it, especially when the item is not being worked on for some time. It also helps the team to avoid unnecessary repeated discussions over the item. A person responsible for keeping this information updated is typically a team member that this backlog item was assigned to. That was 5 practical rules for backlog item definition. Thank you for watching, and if you find the video useful, please give me a like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps me to grow this channel and to create more content for Agile community. See you in some of my next videos.